Good morning and welcome to Sunday Fun Day from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. This is a very fun and special show for us because it is our 1 year anniversary. Can you believe it? It's actually, I looked at the calendar today. It's been 365 days since we started doing this. So thank you all for being here. Happy birthday to us. Hello, Shy Gal. Hello to everybody in the chat already. Alicia K. Mayo and Krista OG and Joy W. But first, coffee. Thank you so much. Oh, from Switzerland. I love it. This is going to be a real fun one for a few reasons. One, it's our birthday. Thank you, Sheila. Two, we asked you guys to leave us some calls, and you absolutely did. So we're going to have a lot of really fun calls and some other stuff to do, and not the least of which is a giveaway. So I am juiced. Kaylin, are you juiced? Kaylin's juiced. Tiffany's juiced. I have to let you guys in on where that comes from one day, but here's what we got going for us. Please hit the like button, first of all, so that we can let everybody know that we're here. Secondly, this is the first time I would like to say hello to anybody who's following this on Facebook as well, because this is the first time that we were able to live stream this to YouTube and Facebook as well. We are going to go through some news and some catch you up on some updates and all of that good stuff. But first, a very special thanks to everybody. It has been a year. We did not know what we were getting into. We had not low expectations in the sense that we didn't think much of what we could do, but we certainly did not have expectations of the channel turning into what it has turned into in just 1 year's time. And that has been absolutely incredible for us to experience. It's been a joy every day that we work at this. We work at this daily. We got poor Kaylin getting text messages in the wee hours of the night because we came up with some idea. But we enjoy every single second of it, and all of that is because of you guys and your support. And I do really mean that it's so encouraging to show up and see so many wonderful people having a wonderful time on the chat, and all of the positive feedback that we receive in the comments. And the people who have been able to and made a choice to be part of our membership, that financial support is incredibly helpful and tremendous and appreciated. You know, we're putting this together on a shoestring budget, and a lot of us are making sacrifices so that we can make this channel work. And so every little positive comment and every little super chat and contribution of memberships or whatever you guys are able to do is absolutely something that touches our heart and helps us. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's hash value, not hashtag, says congratulations on 1 year. Thank you so much for that. Can't believe that we're here. I'm not surprised that we made it a year. I'm surprised that after a year, this is where we're at with 20,000 plus subscribers and being able to put out regular content every single week. It was not on our bingo card as to what we thought this channel would turn into. So thank you guys so much. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We asked you guys, first of all, we're doing a giveaway today for our 1 year birthday anniversary. And what we asked you to do was leave us a voice message and follow us on Facebook. And the follow us on Facebook had to do with we needed to get past a certain number of followers on Facebook so that we could even start streaming on Facebook. So we got there. Thank you guys so much for all of that. And then leave us a voice message, because I love this voice message part of Sunday Fun Day. It honestly is, I think, making the show in my view. And you guys absolutely came through. We got a lot of fantastic messages. We're going to go through there. Some really great questions. Some really amazing moments that you guys decided to share with us. So thank you for all of that. Let's just jump into them, okay? I think you guys are really going to enjoy these. All right. Let me make sure I'm doing this all correct. You guys will tell me if you can't hear it.
Hey y'all, this is Holly in Houston. Hello again. I'm watching Josh's Members Only November 2024 live, and he just shared at the very beginning that he worked for the family of a bank robber. And I was like, ooh, I have to tell my story. I had forgotten until Josh said that. Well, this is many moons ago. My rainbow baby Ryan, who is now 14, I wanted to be at home with him because I knew I'm not going to be able to have any more babies after him. So I want to be with him as much as possible. Yet I wanted to contribute to, you know, um, the household, right? Well, I answered an ad to do at-home medical billing for an individual. And I don't have any official training, but I am a fast learner. So if you ever hear of anything, run it by me. Just saying. Okay. So I answered this ad, and it was a lady, she called herself Sandy. So I met her at a Starbucks. She seemed really nice. And so she hired me there, and she paid me herself and gave me a bunch of documents. She seemed legitimate, and she trained me. And well, come to find out, it popped up. I wasn't even looking for it. Sandra Melgar was the lady I was working for. Yes, look it up. Houston case. On her and her husband's anniversary. Okay, this is part 2. This is still Holly. Hello. Okay, so on Sandra and her husband's, goodness, I forget his name. I'm a bad person. It was their anniversary, and supposedly people broke in, tied Sandra up, put her in a closet. And whenever she got free, her husband was unalived in the other room. Yes. So I was like, oh my gosh. So from that point on, I was afraid to be alone with her because, see, she went MIA all the time. She's like, well, I have to go on a trip. I have to go out of town. I'm going on vacation. Okay. Well, you know what? After I found out who she was, by pure accident, although I am nosy, I can't be nosy. I went on to the court records and I saw her case. You can see it. It's, of course, y'all know how to access that stuff. I was like, well, so, okay, technically out of town because I was living in Spring, which is north of Houston. So I'm like, okay, well, half truths, not about it, but whatever. So I thought that would be fun for you to touch on. I do not know the outcome of this, of her trial at all. I haven't checked the docs in forever. So who knows? I don't know. Anyway, y'all take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, Holly from Houston. So I see a lot of you chatting saying, oh, I remember this case. I remember this case. I do not remember this case. Holly, you asked us to look it up. This is Sandra Melgar. We did look it up, and wow, this is a wild case. I feel like if this case were taking place now, it would be one of those cases that a lot of people would be following and talking about. But it took place a while ago. It took place in 2012. So here's just the bare bones facts of this thing. It is Jim, by the way, Jim and Sandy Melgar, Holly, who were married for 32 years in Texas. And in 2012, I think it was a family member, I think it was their child, their son, returns home, hasn't heard from mom and dad. Mom and dad had a anniversary celebration. Son comes home, walks upstairs, finds mom inside of her closet. She had like a walk-in closet in her bathroom. A chair has been propped up, jamming the door. He has to move the chair, open the door. Mom is laying inside, tied up on her hands and her ankles. Dad, poor Jim, is in the other bathroom, stabbed 50 times to death with multiple defensive wounds, which will become important later. The house is ransacked. It looks like somebody has gone through looking for something. And she has a history of seizures and cannot tell police what happened. She has no memory of what happened, according to her. She remembers the dinner. She remembers coming home. But the next thing she knows, she's waking up in the closet, tied up. the son actually has to cut off her bindings to get her out of the closet. Okay. So it wasn't like they were loosely tied, if that's where you guys are going with all of this. Anyways, the prosecution decides to go after her, and they believe, first of all, there's no forced entry into the home. They believe that the scene was staged. Their claims are that nothing of value was taken. The defense contested that. And they say, and this was the part that got me, because I was listening to all of that. Fine. You could easily stage a break-in. You can easily, I get all of it. I could even get the tying my hands and ankles. How do you jam a chair to a door on the outside when you're on the inside? And their theory was that she took either a towel or a pillowcase and was able to pull that under the door to jam the chair to the door from the outside. Quite an elaborate setup. And one more thing, she's got no injuries on her, no blood, no injuries on her, whereas it looks like he was involved in a very bloody struggle. So, Holly, you didn't know what happened. You've been waiting to know how this turned out. Well, she is sitting in a Texas prison after having been found guilty and sentenced to 27 years. So this case is one of those cases that is getting a lot of people. Yes, there is an Innocence Project involved. There's a kind of crowd-funded effort. There's a website online for people who are in support of this whole thing. You know, it's one of those cases, and we see these cases all the time. We're going to talk about some more of them today, where people hear the facts of it as I've just laid it out, and it sounds so incredibly appalling that you say to yourself, how in the world could they have even charged this person? And first of all, I think we have to be fair to admit that I am maybe not giving you every bit of information that the jurors got, right? Hopefully they got more information than what I just gave to you. And that's not because I'm trying to deceive you. It's just, this is what's available online and gives you the general story of what took place. The other thing is that I will say, and in my career, I've seen it, bizarre, abnormal things happen. And just because something is strange and seems like it's outside of the realm of probability doesn't mean it's outside of the realm of possibility. And that, yes, could a person have staged this? Could this woman, after 32 years, decided she wanted her husband dead and have staged this entire thing? Absolutely, she could have. I don't know what the evidence was, but I'm telling you, after I'm looking at this and reading this, my jaw was on the table for most of the time I was reading the information on it. So thank you, Holly, for bringing that to our attention. I will put this in the queue of cases that we will continue to follow as just something that we feel is interesting. I'm curious to see how this turned out. So thank you for that, Holly. All right, let's move on to our next call here.
Hi, Josh. This is Pam from Michigan. Quick question. I've always wondered, for defense attorneys, what do you do when you think or know that your client is guilty? For instance, Brian Koberger, I'm not sure what his defense attorney, Ann Taylor, thinks, but my inclination would be that he's guilty. But even with other cases, Luigi Mangione or Corey Richens, does the defense attorney just defend as in they're not guilty, or is it harder to defend? Just a question I've always wondered. Love your podcast. I don't always get a chance to listen to it live, but I always listen to the recording. So congratulations, great job, and can't wait to get to the next live. And happy anniversary for your 1 year.
Well, thank you so much, Pam from Michigan. I don't know if you're here today. I hope that you are, but if you're not, I will say hello to you in the future when you do listen to this. Great question. Question that I get all the time. Usually people do not frame it in as nice a way as you just put it. How do you deal with, how do you handle it? What do you think about handling dealing with clients who are obviously guilty. Usually I get it much more blunt. How do you sleep with yourself defending those folks? And I failed to do this at the beginning, but I should explain for, we probably have a lot of new folks here today. I am currently a criminal defense attorney. I was a prosecutor with the LA DA's office for 10 years. I left the office. I went into private practice. I've been a criminal defense attorney for almost as long. So this is the entire space in which I've spent my career, is in either side of criminal law. And it was a question when I was a prosecutor that I would ask of defense attorneys. How do you do this? How do you sleep at night? Well, let me say this. First of all, as a private defense attorney, I enjoy the ability to pick and choose my clients. I do not have to be retained by every person who walks through the door. So if there is somebody who I just find to be so distasteful, so unseemly, what they've done is just so awful in my view, and it doesn't necessarily mean murder. It's the worst of it. There are a lot of things short of murder that I find to be far more disgusting sometimes. And if I don't want to represent that person, I don't have to. So I'm not like in the position of a public defender who might have to just take whatever case lands on their desk. I will say in situations like Brian Kohberger, she asked about him in particular. I think that his attorneys very much view this as if their mission is just to save his life. He's looking at the death penalty, and I think that they view their entire mission is just to avoid the death penalty for their client. I think they're going to defend him on the guilt phase and try to do their best job, but I think that they view this as a mission to try to save his life. I will say this. One, it's probably easier, ironically, if your client is guilty, is willing to admit so, and is guilty of something that's not all that horrific. Because then you're dealing with somebody who's living in reality, and the case becomes much more about how do I help them out? How do I make sure that the system doesn't just steamroll them? It's the people who are, I feel, innocent where it gets very, very difficult. And that's where I lose sleep, because now it's like a lot is resting on my shoulders. This person's entire future is resting on my shoulders if I don't get this right. But even in those cases where it's somebody who's done something awful and they're guilty of it, I feel like when I represent a person like that and the fit is right, that I still have a job to do. That job is, I had a law professor when I was in law school who taught criminal procedure. And Tracy, this kind of goes to your point. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? You're right. I think what we're talking about is I've got a client who says I did it and they're sitting in my office. But this law professor said that criminal defenders, defense attorneys, they are in the business of law enforcement, just like anyone else. Because what they're doing is making sure that the law is enforced against the government as well. And I really liked that way of thinking about it, that we're both using the Constitution. We're both using the laws. The prosecution, when I was a prosecutor, I would use the laws to make sure that somebody who'd done something awful saw justice. As a criminal defense attorney, I'm using those same laws, the same Constitution, to make sure that the prosecution and the government isn't just running over my client with abusing their rights. And so a lot of times that's what I view that my job is doing, is just making sure that I'm protecting this person and shepherding them through this entire process. But it's a question I get a lot. I hope I answered that in a somewhat satisfactory way, because I know a lot of people are curious with that. But Pam from Michigan, thank you so much. CH says, would you go as far as standing up in court and state you believe them to be innocent? Have always wondered if this is common. It is not common. In fact, it is not appropriate. Your vouching for them is not evidence. But I think that judges and jurors can pick up on how much you believe in your client and how much you believe in whether what they did was what they were accused of or not. I will tell you this too. the idea of clients being purely innocent is very rare. Not saying it doesn't happen. I've represented one myself, more than one. But usually where I think things end up is in this gray area between completely guilty, completely innocent. And it's this area of they did something, but just maybe not what the government is saying, and maybe not as serious as what the government is saying, but they made some mistake somewhere. Anyhow, thank you again, Pam from Michigan. All right, let's move on.
Hi, Josh. I just wanted to know if you happened to watch the trial of Massachusetts versus Penny McGee. Judge Canoni, it's a bench trial, and it is crazy. It's on right now. Today's Monday. If you want to try to catch it, I think you would really be amazed.
You guys heard that, right? Okay, good. Michelle, thank you so much. Penny McGee. Yes, I do know about this case. I did not watch it as closely, but I did follow it. For those of you who are not sure what we're talking about, this was a case that probably caught more attention because of who the judge is than who the defendant is. But it's also an interesting case from a legal perspective because of what the government, what the state of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts tried to do in this case. Penelope McGee was a prominent Rhode Island woman, came from kind of a politically connected family. She was charged with manslaughter for the death of her husband, Andrew Savitz. They were either in the midst of or going through some sort of contentious divorce or family strife. And it was a bench trial in front of Judge Canoni, who we all know now from Karen Reed. Bench trial meaning there was no jury. It was just a trial in front of the judge. And I think the reason for that is the reason why I'm going to explain why it was an interesting case. But what happened is that Penny and Andrew get into a heated argument. It's witnessed by someone else. She is witnessed yelling at him, at times slapping him, at times perhaps shoving him. The witness calls 911, and while they're on the 911 call, Andrew collapses. He's taken to the hospital and he dies. And he's got a history of heart disease. He had a prior stroke, and the medical examiner says that he dies of cardiac dysrhythmia, meaning he essentially had a heart attack. And the state, the Commonwealth, charges her with manslaughter in causing that death. And if I'm immediately offended by that, and I think that a lot of you are probably as well. There's certainly a point where we're getting into government overreach and prosecutorial overreach. And I think this is one of those situations. If this were something where she pushed him down the stairs and it caused some sort of medical response, okay. But when you're just yelling at someone, pushing them, slapping at them, what you're doing is you're coming down to the question of what we call natural and probable consequences. And I think that's why her attorneys wanted to have this in front of a judge, because it is a very specific legal question. Usually when you see a bench trial, it's when it's not, the facts might be weird, the facts might be difficult, the facts might be confusing, the facts might be emotionally inflammatory, but the legal issues are kind of nuanced and straightforward. And that's why you want the judge to handle this. You want a judge as a defense attorney to understand your nuanced legal arguments and that not be lost in the noise of the facts, perhaps. But natural and probable consequences is the definition according to the jury instruction here in California, but I imagine that's similar in Massachusetts and elsewhere in the country, is that a natural and probable consequence is one that a reasonable person would know is likely to happen if nothing unusual intervenes. So the question that you have to ask is, would a reasonable person believe that someone's going to drop dead when they get into a heated argument with them and slap them and shove them and yell at them, even if that person has a prior medical condition, even if that person had a prior stroke? And I think the answer clearly is no. No, we don't believe that would be a natural, probable consequence of that, unless something unusual happens. And something unusual is that this guy had this cardiac dysrhythmia that caused him to have this unexpected heart attack. We are not talking about somebody who was so feeble, so close to the point of death itself, that to yell at them, anyone, a reasonable person might agree would push him over the edge. So I listen. I understand and appreciate prosecutors being aggressive and trying new and creative theories. But here, and in some circumstances, I think that can start to look like prosecutorial overreach. And I think putting Miss McGee through that was prosecutorial overreach. So I think the judge handled it properly. Cannoni handled it properly. Actually, I think the way that it came out was that the second closing arguments were done, she had her verdict already. She didn't waste a bunch of time. You know, Cannoni likes to kind of take things under advisement. She didn't do that here. So good on her. And, you know, maybe perhaps some lessons learned out in the Commonwealth, though I doubt it. P. Lola's mom says, anyone know who the DA who charged her was? I don't know. I can't answer you to that, but I know it's in that same department. Isn't the DA in Massachusetts voted into office? Yes, the DA in Massachusetts is voted into office, as are, I believe, all states attorneys, district attorneys are a publicly held office. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get into the whole politics behind the whole thing, but I do know that I when I immediately heard what this case was about, I thought to myself, don't sound right to me. Does not sound right to me. All right. Let's move on. I'm loving this. I hope you guys are loving this. I think these questions that you guys have and where you're calling from is fantastic. All right. That was Michelle. So now we're moving on to...
Hi, Josh and Tiff and your beautiful babies. G'day from Melbourne, Australia. I just wanted to leave you a voice message and let you guys know how much I love your show, Josh. And I love this ability to leave a message. I'm like, oh, starstruck. But thanks so much for your channel. And I love your insights from both your prosecutor hat and your defense hat. And I love when you bounce those brains off each other in topics and issues that are legal. I'm autistic and I have ADHD, but I'm also a social worker. So I'm such a nerd for your analysis and your takes. Keep it up. And yeah, this is such a cool feature. Had to give the obligatory g'day from Australia with my accent. But yeah, you're amazing. And I hope that you get to quit being an attorney so you can be a stay-at-home girl dad and do CC because you're so good at it. And thank you, Tiff, for lending us your beautiful husband. I love how you guys met in the jury. Ooh! Anyway, I'll catch you on your comments. Thanks, Josh. Bye.
Oh, Steph, that is so sweet of you. What a nice message. From Melbourne, Australia. I'm so glad you threw the good day in there. Thank you for doing that. I don't know if I could have got through that message if you didn't give us a little morsel like that, but very sweet of you to send the kind words. I'm working at it, Steph. From your lips to God's ears, we're working at it. Hopefully, I would love to be a girl dad and do nothing but chat with you guys all day long. So you know that's the goal. We'll see how things go. Yeah, let's make it happen, everybody. Steph, that was very sweet of you. And God, isn't it? This is the other amazing thing is that you lose, or at least I do. You lose. You sometimes may be forgetful of the idea that this is going out into the entire world. So when we start to get these international messages, it just blows me away. So hello, Australia, and hello, Steph, and thank you for that. Yes, Sam M. I did meet Tiff. I wasn't a juror. She was a juror. I was a prosecutor. I've told that story. I might tell it again, but I don't think I'm going to tell it again right now. But yes, that was how we met, and we've known each other ever since then. And it's been known each other. Of course, we've known each other, but we've been together ever since then. And she's the luckiest thing that's ever happened to my life. So thank you. Sam, bug me again and I will tell the story. All right, let's go on to this next message.
Hey, Josh and the entire CC crew. This is Jocelyn, aka JC Broadway, calling from Salt Lake City, Utah. I took your advice and had a shot of whiskey or two before calling, so I hope this goes well. If not, I will hang up and try again. But I was just watching you on the Defense Diaries talking about the A$AP Rocky case and how John Lewin, the prosecutor, took it. Seems like a weak case. I was just kind of wondering how much control you have as a prosecutor when the DA hands you a case that you don't really believe in for whatever reason, whether it's just poor evidence or even not really feeling very convicted about the person's maybe even actual innocence. How much power you have to say no to that case? Can you refuse to take a case, and how that all works? Thank you very much, and I hope I didn't mess it up. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, aka JC Broadway from Salt Lake City. It's so fun to put voices to a lot of the names that I've seen forever. So thank you for calling in and working up that liquid courage to do it. This is a great question. The answer is this, and the question is, how much control as a prosecutor do you have, or ability do you have to say no when you don't believe in a case? The answer is this: more than you think. Certainly more than I thought when I first started as a prosecutor. When you work in the DA's office, there is a bit of a military kind of mentality to it. You view yourself as kind of an arm of law enforcement. You know, you're called deputies. Your boss is called your chief deputy. There's this kind of military hierarchy to how everything works and the chain of command. And I don't want to go overboard with the idea, but you do kind of get this idea of you have a duty and you have a job, and these are your orders, and this is what you're told to do. And when you're first starting out, you believe like the idea of saying no, you can't do because one, you don't have the ability to, and two, it would show some sort of weakness or cowardice on your part for not taking a case. But I soon realized that's not true, and that a large part of what prosecutors should be doing is saying no. They should be gatekeepers. And as the prosecutor in the DA's office in Los Angeles, and this is how it works in a lot of the bigger offices, these cases are handed off to different DAs all the time. You have the DA who may have filed the case, who hands it off to the DA who may have handled the prelim, who hands it off to the DA that may handle the trial. I was usually the DA that handled the trial. And by the time it gets to me, it's been through several other hands, but no one's had to look at it with the idea of how do I win this at trial? And the standard for a prelim is much lower than the standard for a trial. So the prelim DA may not be all that concerned. Maybe just think this case has got problems, but I'm just going to move things down the line on my little treadmill here. And the filing DA may just have kind of limited knowledge of what they knew at that time, but they think that it's a good case. I hope that everybody every step of the way is trying to make good decisions. But as that trial DA, now it's on you. You're going to go into court and actually have to try to prove this thing. So I would go to my supervisors and tell them, this case is hot garbage. This is not worth doing this. Or we're barking up the wrong tree, or we've got the wrong person, or we're going after a good person in the wrong way. A lot of that stuff happens. I will tell you, you know, many times the background of a person played a big role in my mind. Do people make mistakes? Sure. And do really good people make horrible mistakes? Sure. Oh, thank you, JC. Says, I'm glad to hear this answer. I don't think there's prosecutor arguing cases that they don't believe in. Thanks for answering. Yeah, I would be bothered if I felt like a prosecutor was out there arguing a case that they truly did not believe in. So without getting too long-winded about the whole thing, you know, I would routinely go to my bosses and say, this is we need to settle this. We need to do something here to make this right. rarely was that ever dismiss it, because hopefully we've made the right decisions leading up to that, that it's not a dismissible case. But I've even had those situations where I'm like, this is not the right thing to be doing here. Now, that all being said, I cannot say that that same kind of mentality applies across the board to every prosecutor. And I think there are some people out there who just get a case and they switch into win or nothing mode, and they're not thinking about it the way they should be thinking about it as gatekeepers as well. And they're just trying to go for the win. And when you see those cases come up, I think it's very disappointing. But I've never walked away from what is just simply a difficult case or a hard to prove case. If I felt the person was good for it and a person who deserved the justice we were intending to hand to them, I would take those difficult cases. I prided myself in being somebody who would take the cases that needed the work and that were difficult to do. So, which some people did not. Anyhow, thank you for that, JC Broadway from Salt Lake City. I appreciate you asking the question. All right, let's move along here.
Hey, Josh, this is Sandy. Caught your podcast with Scott and absolutely loved him, and glad I found your channel through him. Just wondering, did you know EDB at all? Did you work with her when you were in prosecutor's office? And I am from the Philly area. Thanks. Have a great one.
Well, thank you so much, Sandy from Philadelphia. She's asking about Emily D. Baker. If you're following me, I'm sure you're following her or have heard of her. Emily has a background very similar to mine. She was a prosecutor in the DA's office in Los Angeles during, I think, the same years that we were even in the office together. I never worked with Emily. I was the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, and they told us this several times when we were getting hired. Law Nerds Unite is the largest prosecutorial agency in the entire world. When I was a prosecutor, we had over 1,000 DAs. That is not including support staff, which was maybe triple that. So it is a enormous office. It covers the largest county in the entire United States. And we would handle every single felony that took place in Los Angeles County and a lot of the misdemeanors. So a huge, huge office. So there is a dozen different branch offices. Out of those branch offices, there are a bunch of what we call area courts. So you can, as much as it's a small office, and I felt like I did know a lot of people, and you would run into a lot of people and know a lot of different names, there were also people that you sometimes just never met. And my understanding is that Emily and I were just never assigned to the same branch. We were never in the same assignment. I do know, since though I have started doing this and I've asked colleagues about Emily, I do know some people who had worked with her, and everybody had really, really nice things to say about her. And I've seen her on YouTube, obviously, and she's incredibly qualified and experienced, and is, bringing some of the best content and information on YouTube about this type of criminal law tube stuff, whatever you want to call it. So I am flattered to be sharing the same space as her. Wow, thank you so much, Ferndale, for that. That's incredible. Thank you. To be sharing the same space as Emily, and I say hi to her and say hi to all the folks who follow her. And maybe one day we'll bug her enough that she'll come on and let me interview her, and we could talk some shop about our time in the LADA's office. But thank you for that, Sandy from Philadelphia. All right.
Hi, Joshua and everyone in the Courtroom Confidential crew. My name is Carrie. I live on Vancouver Island in beautiful British Columbia. And my question is in regards to the Ellen Greenberg case, and specifically the medical examiner's role. I think it's pretty obvious to any layperson or professional that has seen or heard anything about this case that it would be absolutely impossible for this to have been an unaliving. So, A, how was that determination ever found? And B, now that it has been walked back, what is the relevancy of the reasoning that he's given? The boyfriend, for instance, being seen entering the apartment prior to 911 calls or not. This woman had more than 20 stab wounds to the back of her head and neck. So yeah, I'm just curious how we ever got that determination in the first place, and how his reasoning now is enough to walk that back and change the determination. Thank you so much.
What a great question. Carrie from Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Thank you so much. Hello, Canada. So I know a lot of people have been following Ellen Greenberg. This is a quick catch up on her. In 2011, Ellen Greenberg, she's a 27-year-old school teacher from Philadelphia, and she is found inside of her apartment with 20 stab wounds to her body. And as Carrie pointed out, a lot of them, you'll see here in this graphic, a lot of them to the back of her head and neck. And this is the tortured history of the medical examiner's opinion on this case. Originally, Dr. Marlon Osborne says this is a homicide. Then he says he received some information from the police department, which changed his opinion to that of suicide. Then, how many years later are we here? A lawsuit is brought by Ellen's family. He is included in that lawsuit. In that settlement of that lawsuit, he writes out what is not a sworn affidavit. I think it's called a verification, where he basically says that now, decades later, receiving more information, he believes he's no longer the medical examiner, so he cannot change the opinion, but he has now decided that given this new information, it should be declared as something quote, other than suicide. Okay. First of all, let's talk about that. What does that other than suicide mean? Well, there's only certain ways a medical examiner can determine manner of death. It's either homicide, suicide, natural, accidental, or unknown, right? So we're not dealing with natural here, obviously. We're not dealing with accidental here, obviously. So if he's saying it's other than suicide, we're only left with homicide and unknown. So that's where he thinks this should be. Either say it's unknown, undetermined, let investigators continue to investigate, or call it a homicide and let them continue to investigate. And the question, though, from Carrie, because we did a live on this, we've covered this case before. A lot of people are talking about this case. It's one of those cases where, again, we mentioned this earlier. You hear the immediate facts and you are shocked that anybody could view this anything other than what you believe it to be. Okay. So how in the world was this ever classified as a suicide at any point is the question I think that Carrie is asking. I am not trying to defend Dr. Marlon Osborne, but I am trying to give you guys some insight into how this works with medical examiners. They first of all, they're working with a few things. They're working with one, just the body, right? They can see things like defensive wounds might tell them something. They can see things like how many wounds a person has might tell them something. They can see things like the level of intoxication. All of this stuff goes together, and they can start to formulate an idea of one, cause, how did this person lose their life, and manner, under what circumstances did this person lose their life. But then they are also provided with surrounding evidence, and that's important too. If you have a shooting to a person's temple, looking at simply the body, all you have is a wound to that person's temple. But if you were then told by investigators that a gun was found in that person's hand, that might lead you to a different conclusion than if you heard the gun was found 25 feet away from the victim. Okay, so this type of information can become important to them making a determination. I am unclear, and I don't know if it's ever been shared with us, what exactly was shared with this doctor back in the day that led him to change it from a homicide to a suicide. But whatever that was, he felt that it was convincing enough to make this determination change. And now he's saying he's learned new information that has again changed that. So obviously, the information on the autopsy itself is somehow leaving room for interpretation, which is surprising to me to begin with, because I'm no medical examiner, but you would think that that many stab wounds to the back of someone's neck is not the typical way in which somebody would take their own life. But at least Dr. Madeline Osborne felt that there was enough ambiguity there to find a conclusion outside of the obvious, okay? The ultimate kind of question here, though, is should he be allowed to do this, and where is this going to go from here? Not only should he be allowed to do it, I think it should be encouraged. Now, can that be abused like anything else in life? It absolutely can, but I think it should be encouraged that if a medical examiner feels that there is new information that should lead him into a different direction, he should have the freedom and bravery to say that. Because we, at the end of the day, we want the right thing done. We don't want people digging their heels in early on. So should he change it if he feels that it's important? Yes, he should, but he should be doing it for the right reasons and based upon, and again, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. It could also be based upon having access to all of the most accurate information. And if he is not getting the most accurate information or not getting all of it, then garbage in, garbage out. So he has to also make sure that law enforcement is providing him with everything he needs to make that correct observation. But where does this go from here? I do not know. I know that they're going to reopen the investigation. I know that they plan on perhaps doing another autopsy and evaluating this, or having someone else take a look at the autopsy that was done at the time. Could that change it from its current classification to something like homicide or undetermined? It could. And what if it does? I think that will bring hopefully some level of comfort to her parents and family, but does that mean that an arrest is coming anytime soon? Again, I don't know. And my guess would sadly be probably not, because after all of this time, if they're having so much difficulty, and again, I know that people are thinking, well, there's a cover up and there's something. Putting that aside, maybe there is corruption in a cover up, but putting that aside, it could just be that they don't have enough to know exactly what happened. And even if they know what they feel what happened, do they even have enough to pin that on a suspect? Because this could be declared a homicide. Still doesn't mean you get somebody in handcuffs. So it's, again, another case that just immediately shocks and infuriates you. And I hope that this has a conclusion, and what a wild ride that will be, but we'll continue to follow it. Sam M says, how could they do another autopsy? I mean, it could be to the point, I don't know, have her remains, I don't know the condition of her remains. I don't know if they're talking about exhuming her, or I don't know if they're talking about taking the original autopsy notes, reports, many times there's audio recordings, photographs, whatever else, and having somebody reconstruct that with fresh eyes. I don't know. They are reevaluating the original autopsy, not a new one. Well, Julie Frew, thank you for clearing that all up. And quite frankly, too, after all this time, the condition of the body, not to get too graphic about it, probably wouldn't be all that helpful for an autopsy anyway. So it sounds like it's just a fresh set of eyes with hopefully all of the correct information being provided to them, trying to make a determination of what took place here. So we will see. Great question. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carrie. All right, let's move on here to our next one. Hold on. Yeah, I might have to refresh this. Tell me if you hear this, okay?
Hello, Joshua. This is your spirit animal, Alicia K. Mayo here. In the Megan Boswell case, Is it possible the prosecutors either did not present all the evidence they have for some reason, such as I don't remember hearing about, like how far down in the mouth or the throat the aluminum foil was, if there's any sort of tissue reaction to her injuries, or possible proof that there might have been a breath taken after she was placed in the garbage can? Or did they just not show that on TV? Like to know your thoughts. Thanks. Have a good one.
Alicia K. Mayo, you absolutely are my spirit animal, and you put me in a fantastic mood. So thank you so much for leaving that question. It's a great question. This case is one of those cases that I'm probably not going to forget for a very long time. So not only is it horrific, not only is it tragic, not only is it nightmare fuel. And a lot of that had to do with the loss of this beautiful baby's life and the way in which she was finally found. And Alicia's question is, I think the second part of the question is, there's that beautiful baby. Second part of the question is, was there stuff that was not shown to us in court? I don't believe that that was true. I believe that everything that was testified to was shown on television, was captured by cameras. Was there stuff that may have taken place during hearings that the judge didn't allow that? I'm not sure of that. But I know that if we've got open court and the judges allowed cameras, we should be getting everything. So Alicia's question is, am I missing something as far as the findings as to whether or not they could determine if this beautiful baby girl took a breath after she had been wrapped up? And Alicia is getting to the heart of this case very quickly. To me, this was the central issue, was whether or not, two things, whether or not beautiful baby Evelyn was alive when she was wrapped up, had tinfoil shoved into her mouth and wrapped around her face. God, that is just horrible to think about. There's the tinfoil that was shown in court. There's the tinfoil that was shown in court that jurors could actually smell. Or was she dead before she was put in there? And what caused her death? Okay, so the cause and timing, I think, were the central questions in this case, because, and obviously the jurors got past all of this, and I think that they did, and I think that they did a lot of that, though, based upon other evidence, not the medical examiner's evidence. Other evidence like who would do this? Would the same type of person who would treat their beautiful baby child in this manner and dispose of their body like garbage be the type of person who would take that child's life? And I think the question that I think the answer to that question in the jurors' minds was absolutely yes. And I think they made the right decision. And I've talked about this before, and I, for some reason, get a lot of heat from people. And I am not throwing any of the medical examiners in this case under the bus. My simple kind of point here was that no medical examiner was able to give us a definitive answer to cause of death, meaning, did she die accidentally? Did she die from some sort of, what we call sudden, unexplained infant death? Or did she die from being strangled? Did she die from being suffocated by tinfoil? And when did she die? Did she take, as Alicia says, final breaths inside of that trash can, or did she take her final breaths before being wrapped up that way? All of those things are important because the defense's theory was, listen, if that child was dead before, if that child, let's start it this way. If that child was alive at the time she had tinfoil put in her mouth and wrapped around her beautiful face and stuffed upside down inside of a trash can, that is first-degree murder and probably one of the most horrific and heinous things I've ever heard in my whole life. But if she was dead ahead of time, then that opens up the question of, well, then how did she die? Because if she died from some sort of accident or unexplained event, and then her mother, having a twisted and broken brain, thought this was what she needed to do to get rid of the body, that is something very different, and it's something short of first-degree murder. But to answer Alicia's Alicia K's question, and I hope I'm doing that, Alicia, is you'll let me know, I'm sure, I think we were shown everything. And I think that at the end of the day, we just didn't have those definitive answers, but the jurors felt that they didn't really need that to arrive at their verdict. And I think we can all agree, thank God they did. Sam M says, if Megan told her lawyer if the baby was alive or dead, would he have to tell the prosecutor? 100% no. 100% no. That is attorney-client privileged information all day long. Anything that your client tells you, not only do you not have to tell, you cannot tell to the prosecution. So yeah, that attorney could have very well known that she took this baby's life and still stood up and argued on her behalf. Thank you, Alicia. I will now go through the day not feeling like I've disappointed you, and I appreciate that. But he could have been making those arguments knowing she was absolutely guilty of this, and that's, you know, part of that difficult job. Somebody asked me earlier, what kind of cases do I turn down? Yeah, there's no amount of money in the world you could get me to stand up and be involved in a case like this. Oh my God, so heartbreaking. All right. Oh, jury duty pod. Kimberly B says, I'm behind, but would that have been another Robert Durst kind of defense outcome if they haven't been able to agree on first degree? I'm a little lost. I think we're talking about this one, but in other words, would they have considered, I hope I'm getting your question right. If I'm not, I apologize, but would they have considered lesser includeds? Usually the way lesser includeds work in most jurisdictions is that they would have had to have found her not guilty first of the greater crime before moving on to the lesser included crime. Oh, I see what you're saying. He got off of murder, but yeah, it's okay. So I see what you're saying now. Thank you. So yeah, if they found her not guilty of the murder because they just didn't feel there was enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, then yeah, they absolutely could have found her guilty of defiling a body, which they did anyways. And they could have found her guilty of all of the other crimes, the lying to police and everything else. She was looking at, I think, 16 different crimes. So yes, but I mean, let's not make a mistake here. All of those are tail wagging the dog. This was a murder trial, but they could have found her not guilty and found her guilty of everything else. And she probably still would have been looking at going away of prison for a very long time, just probably not 51 years to life. Thank you for clarifying that. I hope I asked that correctly, answered that correctly. All right, let's move on to our next question here. These are so fantastic, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, for working up the bravery. This has made this show so much, so fun. All right, I don't want to miss anything. Carrie. 31, 32. Okay, here we go.
Hey, Josh, this is Krista OG, new member. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Krista OG, and thank you for being a new member. Appreciate your support, and thank you for leaving us a message. I listen, even if it's that short, it makes my day. Appreciate that.
Hi, Josh. This is Maureen. I live on the Monterey Peninsula, but like you, I'm a native of Southern California, so I do feel a kind of a kinship with you in that regard. I love your channel. I think it's one of the best true crime channels going. You have real passion for the law and a way of explaining legal topics that makes them really easy to understand for us lay people. My question is something that's bothered me for years and years and years, and I don't know if you can answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When Sharon Tate was murdered by the Manson family, she was 8.5 months pregnant. She was due to deliver basically any day. She begged the murderers to please spare her baby, but they did not. I've always wondered why the fetus/baby was not included as one of the murdered individuals, wasn't included in the indictment. And I was wondering if you thought if that happened today, if the baby would be listed as one of the murdered individuals. Thank you again for your channel and for this opportunity.
Wow. Thank you so much, Maureen from Monterey. Great question. And Maureen, you win the prize for making me do the most work to look into answering a question. But this was a great question about a case that probably we would not be having the opportunity to talk about all that much on this channel. But it is a fascinating question, too, for the legal history. So her question is, Charlie Manson. We all know the Manson family murders. They were charged with several different crimes. It was the Tate and La Bianca murders, 2 different crime scenes, brutal murders that took place at Sharon Tate's home, and then brutal murders that took place at the home of the La Biancas in a different part of Los Angeles. All within days of each other. They were all charged together, but one of the horrific facts about all of it is that Sharon Tate, this beautiful actress seen here, was 8 months pregnant at the time that she was killed. In fact, according to the evidence, she begged for her child's life and was told by one of the killers something horrific along the lines of, I don't care about your baby, or F your baby, or whatever it is. She was stabbed to death, lost her life. The baby lost its life in the course of the mother losing her life. And Maureen's question is, they were charged with 7 murders total, but it should have been 8 because of the baby. And why weren't they charged for the baby, the 8-month-old viable baby at the time? And there's an interesting history behind this. And we have to go back to a case in California called People v. Keeler. I looked this case up and read about it. People v. Keeler was about Robert and Teresa Keeler in California. They were divorced. After they got divorced, Teresa got pregnant by another man. And at one point, Robert confronts her while she's in her vehicle. They're at some pull off somewhere. They had met for some reason, and she's sitting in the vehicle, and Robert comes over and is speaking to her, and he says, quote, "I hear you're pregnant. If you are, you had better stay away from the girls and from here," meaning their girls that they had together, Robert and Teresa, before their divorce. Teresa then gets out of the vehicle. He looks and sees her stomach, sees that she's obviously pregnant. And then he says to her, "You sure are. I'm going to stomp it out of you." And then Robert proceeds to beat her with his knee in her stomach, causing damage to the baby, and the baby loses its life. And he is charged with murder. This is in 1969. At the time, the criminal code for murder in California, PC 187, it's still the same, defined murder as murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. That wording, yeah, Holly, oh my word is correct. That wording, this was the part that blew me away, came from an 1872 statute. Okay, so that's how old the murder statute language was in California in 1969. It was from 1872. Murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. And that's, by the way, everything you learn in law school. Malice aforethought, unlawful killing, all of these things. You dissect all of those elements, but that's what murder is. The unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought is murder. This case goes up on appeal based upon the defense argument that he was convicted, by the way, the defense argument that a human being, according to the statutory history at that time, meant a person born alive. Therefore, a human being did not include an unborn fetus, according to the law in 1969 based upon the 1872 statute. And I hope you guys are all following me. So in 1970, the court in California, in the case of People versus Keeler, decides that he is not guilty of murder because that unborn fetus was not a human being according to the statute. In 1970, the legislature of California amends it to react to Keeler because they felt this was an injustice. And this is giving you an idea of our three-part system of government. You got the judicial system says something. The legislator has to respond to that if they want to cure it. They change it to the way that it reads today, which is murder is the unlawful killing of a human being, comma, or fetus, comma, with malice aforethought. That is the way that the statute stands today. That was amended in 1970. The Manson murders took place in August of 1969. So at the time that they put on the Manson murders, they could not charge anyone, including Charlie Manson, with murder for the unborn 8-month-old fetus of Sharon Tate, and they were not convicted for that. So just a really interesting history. It made me even get out one of the books I have up here on the shelf is the Helter Skelter book, which is the entire history of the Manson murders and the trial. It's a fascinating book. You guys should check it out. So, Maureen, you win the award. That took me some time to put that one together. Great question. Never imagined we'd be talking about Sharon Tate's unborn son forced demise. I agree with you, Alicia. Did not see that one coming. Great question. All right, let's move wrong here. Did she? No, everybody's dead. Patricia, no. Oh, you're talking about Keeler. I think she did. He was only charged with the murder of the fetus. Sorry, if you're talking about Keeler. The mother in Keeler, I believe, survived. He did not kill her. He just beat her about her pregnant belly. I mean, just horrific stuff. But his intention was to kill that child, and he did. But he was not guilty of murder for what he did. All right. Let's get our next question here.
Hey, Josh and everybody at Courtroom Confidential. This is Holly in Houston, Texas. Hello. So this is my question with the voice recording that you talked about right before your power went out. Oh, no. But everybody hung around. I thought that was really cool, you know. So, yeah, so welcome back, belated. I didn't catch the stream, so I'm still dealing with the contagious thing that's been lasting forever that everybody's had. Also injured my left eye, got something behind my contact, so I can't see that well. So, but yeah, so in times like this, what do you do when life gets hard? You know, how do you keep from getting sucked down by cases and trials and things? And, you know, those little things that you do for yourself, what are some things that you like that your wife does for you? Not like a blanket thing. I'm talking like specifics. Same thing with your kids, right? So that's my question. I needed help chopping vegetables and stuff so that I could cook for my family. And both of them pitched in and helped what I needed help with. And it's fantastic. So anyway, well, that's it. Really, really loving your content, your channel. Congratulations on your upcoming 1 year. And hope to catch the next live. Okay.
Thank you so much, Holly from Houston. Yeah, we're in the middle of a live. Right as I was getting to the grand climax, the power went out at our house. And so we were frantic trying to figure it all out. The power went out, which also meant that the internet went out, which meant that I had to actually run the live through that link that you can do on your phone. And it all worked out. And we were just so tickled that I think everybody just stayed and waited until we were able to figure it out. So thank you guys for that. That's a great question, Holly. What do I do when life gets hard? Well, I not to get super overly sentimental. My kids are absolute joy of my life. I love seeing them. Do they wear me out? Of course. Do they frustrate me sometimes? Sure. but you know, just the little one running towards you to want to give you a hug can help you through a lot of difficult times. But I mean, above all else, you know, for you guys who don't know, Tiffany is my wife and my partner in all of this. And I could not absolutely be doing any of this without her. And she is just the rock behind all of this and helps me out. And a lot of ways that she helps me out is just by letting me take a moment here or there. I will turn to her and be like, can I go work out? You know, I need to sweat a little bit. Do we need anything from the store? Are you sure? I need to go take a ride. Or I'll even turn to her and say, do you mind if I go lay down? And she'll let me do that. I'm a huge fan of naps. I get to the afternoon after working all day and going through all of this, and I will crash and I will turn to her and say, can I go lay down? And she always says yes and lets me do that. So thank you. I love you too, sweetheart. This is, I appreciate that question. It's, you know, family and naps are the answer to that question. Thank you, Holly, for asking. All right, let's get on to the next one here.
Hey, CC friends. My name is Mandy, and I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I won't bore you with the entire monologue of how big a fan I am, like I did last time, but hey, big fan. Josh, my question for you is another maybe more introspective one. You know, we all know the serenity prayer, right? Like, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, right? As a lawyer on both sides, I imagine you've really had to internalize that. As a young lawyer, I imagine it was a struggle to realize that you maybe didn't have the power to change all the things you thought needed change, right? As a seasoned lawyer, I imagine you've steeled yourself against the things you just can't change, or maybe even against the things you can change, but at too great a cost. But I'm curious, was there a time for you where you thought, you know what? Hell no, right? This has to change. I will die on this hill. I'm going to change it. Did you end up changing it? What did you learn from that? And maybe, you know, there's the harder version of that question where you have a regret, you know, that looking back with more experienced eyes, maybe you see now that you had a chance to change something but didn't take it. So anyway, thank you. Happy Sunday Fun Day, everyone. Bye.
God, what a great question. Thank you so much, Mandy from San Francisco. I will say that it's probably gotten easier over the years, but still is not something that I've completely worked out of my system. But it is really difficult in this line of work to realize that a lot of what happens is in the hands of other people. Jurors can make bizarre decisions. They can do things that you just did not see coming. They can do things that you feel are great miscarriages of justice, and it's final. And what do you do about that? That can be incredibly frustrating. Judges can make decisions. Judges can be incredibly obtuse. Judges can be incredibly frustrating and ignore the law or misunderstand the law. And despite you could run out of breath making your arguments and feel like you are standing on firm ground, and a judge still doesn't decide with you. And I think early on in my career, I would allow that to just drive me nuts, just put me over the edge with frustration, especially with judges, when I felt like, how could they possibly be doing or allowing this? As you move on, you start to realize, as Mandy points out, that, you know, I only have the power to control what I can control, which is myself and how I respond to it. Still does have situations that frustrate me, and still there are times when I have to remind myself of that. But great question. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to think, is there anything I would have done differently? Probably not the answer you were looking for so much, Mandy, but I think, to be honest, I think I might have stayed in the office, the DA's office, a little bit longer. I feel like I probably could have been a little more patient, received a little bit more experience, but I'm one of those people that feels like all the decisions you made in the past leads you to the place that you are today. And I would not trade who I am and where I'm at in my life with my family and everything else for anything in the world. So I just wish I had the opportunity to do some more difficult, some more interesting cases, but that wasn't in the stars for me. And I'm very happy to be where I'm at now. But great question, Mandy. You're going to probably have me thinking about that one for a while today. All right.
Hey, Courtroom Confidential. Hi, Josh and Tiffany and Kaylin in the chat and members and subscribers and everybody. I am Jody Arrington, and I'm calling in from sunny South Florida, where I do lots of kayaking and take my ukulele along. I do not have a question today, but I do have a little gift for your birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Courtroom Confidential. Happy birthday to you. I just want to say thank you so much for this channel, for all your content, for your courtroom conversations. I love how you promote other content creators and share your insights and judicial expertise. I love the cases you cover. You always answer all my questions in your content. And I love especially how humble you are to your members and subscribers and viewers and everybody. And I'm so proud to be a member of this channel. And thank you for all you do. And happy birthday. Yay!
Jody, you are, look at, I didn't even realize this. Jody's got her ukulele in her picture there. That's fantastic. Jody, you're such a treat. That was so nice. You guys, did I tell you guys you're also going to be getting live music today? This is like a full variety show. You get everything. That was fantastic. And you have a wonderful singing voice and can play the hell out of that ukulele. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. That tickled me, and for all your support and everything. Thank you, Jody. That was very, very sweet of you. All right. What else do we what's next?
Hello, Courtroom Confidential. This is Sonia, and I'm calling you from Chicago. Of course, I'm asking an ASAP Rocky question. And I did send a clip to the lovely, beautiful Mrs. Tiffany. So you should have it. I don't know what the rule that he cited. It is the judge who is now going to be sanctioning the attorneys for squabbling. So I sent you the clip. Is it going to be a hearing after the trial? I mean, how much is it going to be? Have you ever done that? Have you ever seen it? I'm just really, really curious to hear your answer. Hi, everybody. All right. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much, Sonia from Chicago. I'm curious where in Chicago, because I lived for a quick period in my life in Chicago in the northwest suburbs. So thank you. Do we have that clip? Because Sonia actually sent us the clip that she was talking about. So this is the ASAP Rocky case. It's a case taking place here in, let me just give everybody a little bit of background on this. Taking place here in Los Angeles. ASAP Rocky's a rapper. He's been accused of assault with a deadly weapon. The case is, I think, got some real problems from the prosecutor's perspective on it. But the kind of background story to all of this is that the defense attorney is a gentleman by the name of Joe Tacopina, who's a character and a half. And he's up against John Lewin, who you guys remember, may remember from prosecuting Robert Durst. He was in the Jinx docuseries, which is going to become kind of important to our discussion a little bit later on. But these two guys, seasoned veteran attorneys, have been going at each other and not just having a battle in court. ASAP Taco, yeah. not just having a battle in court, but like going at each other personally and just interrupting and speaking objections. And the judge is just losing his brain on this one and cannot get these guys under control. And they're two attorneys who I think have been around the block long enough that they also DGAF on this whole thing. And they are just kind of having at it with each other and having at it with the judge. So let's play this clip here so you can see this is where the judge actually threatens monetary sanctions on the attorneys. Oh, we can't hear it, Kaylin. It might be a situation where I have to play it. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can't do it from my end. Just give us one quick second, guys. Oops. Who's this? Me or you? Is that you? Okay, let's see if Kaylin's got it.
I had to do this, but I'm going to do it.
You guys can hear that, yeah? I can hear it.
And I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody in particular. This is what I'm going to say applies to everybody at the council table. There have been repeated speaking objections, arguing with witnesses that has occurred, arguing amongst counsel, snide comments made from one counsel to another, arguing with a decision of mine. That's not going to happen. If it does, I'm going to invoke CCP 177.5, which allows for monetary sanctions up to $1,500 for each time. And what will happen is, each time it happens, that will be another incident that will occur at a hearing after the trial. I've never had to do this, but to ensure or to help ensure that these things that I just mentioned do not occur again. That is why I am doing this. So please keep it in mind that I'm going to keep track.
During your one interview with them?
There's
no grounds.
Grounds. It's misleading because it's not a sworn statement. It is not a written statement. It is.
That's not a proper objection.
I disagree.
All right. That's one. Both of you. You're on the grounds. All right. Both of you. 177.5. State the grounds.
What you didn't hear is the judge is actually writing this down as one of the sanctioned moments. He's keeping count of the amount of times he wants to sanction them.
That is a summary of his statement.
All right. So obviously the wheels have come off a little bit in decorum in court. I will say a few things. The judge said, I've never had to do this before. I 100% believe that. Judges tend to bark a lot and bite very little when it comes to attorneys because they realize they don't want, these attorneys are going to be in front of them again. It's like we're all neighbors and we live with each other. So you're going to see those same attorneys in that same prosecutor's office again and again and again. And there's no reason that you're not going to start locking up people everywhere. So for him to say that he's actually going to enforce some of these sanctions probably will be the first time in his entire career he's done it. And I think what has really happened in this case is that the attorneys have become so embroiled and so lost in their fight that neither one of them are realizing how it might be perceived from the outside world. Judges hate these kind of speaking objections because what they do is they start to just turn into argument, and they start to turn into, you're basically just telling the jury a bunch of things that they're not allowed to hear anyways. And judges can't stand that stuff because it could lead to error. So he's warned them, he's told them not to. And you could see there from Lewin that he's just kind of doesn't care, still going to do what he feels like he needs to do. John Lewin is an incredibly seasoned, very experienced attorney. I've known him a very long time. I think he's a great attorney. I think he's lost his patience with this case. And I think he's really allowed himself to become embroiled and bothered by the defense attorney, Joe Tacopina, and by the judge and the way that this case has gone. And he's at that point in his career where he just is not, do what you want, lock me up, whatever. I'm going to do what I'm going to do if I feel like something wrong is taking place. And Tacopina, don't know as much about him, but it looks like he doesn't really give many F's about things. And he's kind of going at it too. So we're going to actually watch some more about these guys later. I pulled another clip for you guys to see, but it's become much more the sideshow about these two guys than about ASAP Rocky or even Rihanna, and they happen to be the celebrities who are in court. So very interesting case that has really kind of gone off the rails. But thank you for that question, Sonia, and thank you for sending us that clip that we were able to play. All right, now let me get to the next one I want to play for you guys.
Hey y'all, it's Holly from Houston again. So I can't leave this alone, and I seriously need input, opinions, questions. Let's talk about this. I have been looking, and I know that juries, once they're done, rendering their verdict, and the trial is over, they don't have to talk to anybody. I cannot stop thinking about Collin Griffith, okay? The counsel was allowed to disclose that Collin had murdered someone, but not the relation. That's a big problem, in my opinion. I knew that before the trial started. I was like, what's going on? So they rendered their verdict. It's done. It's over. And boy, he smirked. Did he not? Can we snark on that? Oh, yeah, I got lots of it over here. Can y'all imagine how the jury must have felt learning this after the fact? And I have looked to see if anyone on the jury has dared to talk about this, and I can find nothing. Now, they may have done it locally. That's always possible. Can't find it, and if it's out there, I can't find it. So I am at a loss. I want to know if you have found anything, heard anything, know anything. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much, Holly from Houston. Yeah, this was a case we talked about just recently. The verdict came out on this, and we covered it quite a bit. Collin Griffith, really, I don't know if what the word I'm searching for here. Frustrating, shocking, troubling case and outcome. So this young man, it was on trial for the murder of his mother. She was stabbed in the neck. He claimed that it was self-defense. He claimed that she came after him, but his story had changed a few times to law enforcement. But by the time they made it to trial, he was claiming self-defense. In the course of that trial, the jurors were told that prior to this, Collin had been involved in an altercation and shot and killed someone, and that did not result in a conviction. But that's all they were told. They were not told who that person was or what the circumstances were of that prior death. What they didn't know was that 18 months prior to this killing, Collin had shot and killed his own father. So now both his parents are dead at his hands, shot and killed his own father, also claimed self-defense. And in that prior killing, that was in Oklahoma, the DA's office felt that there was not enough evidence to contradict his claims of self-defense, and they didn't even file a case against him. And the jurors were told about it, but not told who it was. And a lot of people were bothered by that. Here's where I come out on that whole thing. What we don't want to do, and what we try to avoid as much as possible, sorry, let me just adjust my seat here, guys. What we try to avoid as much as possible is jurors basing their decisions on what I'm going to call the what are the chances effect. In other words, will jurors hear information, probative information, important information? I think this is helpful to them to know who the person was that was killed before. But will they take that information and use it in an inappropriate way by allowing it to influence them on perhaps an emotional level, or on perhaps the level of saying, well, what are the chances? What are the chances that this kid could kill both parents and claim self-defense against both and not be good for one of them? That's a real great question. It's a wonderful question for us to all contemplate, but it's not a question appropriate for the jury because they're supposed to be making their decision based upon the facts and circumstances of the case in front of them. We do not want people on trial for who they are. That includes things that they may have done. Only in rare circumstances does that become important. If you are trying to establish a common plan or scheme of a bank robber, and you want to talk about prior bank robberies that were all conducted with the robber wearing a shower cap and flip-flops, then that might be important to talk about prior instances where there was a common plan or scheme. But just saying that somebody had taken the life of someone else and claimed self-defense, and that person happened to be a family member, his father as well, the judge felt was too prejudicial to let the jurors know about in this case. Was that the linchpin? Would that have been the game changer in this case for the jurors? I don't know. I feel like probably. But would it have been appropriate for them to base their conclusion entirely on that? Yes, also probably. And to answer your question, Holly, I have not heard from the jurors. I tried to look around. I have not heard any statements from them. I can't imagine they are not shocked by this if they hadn't put it together already. But again, you know, the question, as difficult as this is, we have to ask ourselves is, would it have been appropriate for them to find him guilty simply because they couldn't get around the idea that there was, what are the chances? And that's not what we want people doing. We want them finding people guilty for what they've done and whether or not that was proven. Now, one last thing on this. I don't think this case is going to be over. I think we're going to be hearing about him again because remember, he was not charged for his father. Jeopardy has not attached. They can still go after and reinvestigate that case. And my understanding is they are taking another look at it. And I would not be surprised if Collin Griffith is on trial for the murder of his father in Oklahoma in the near future. So stay tuned. Again, great question. Thank you so much, Holly. All right, let's move on here.
Hey, Josh, this is Donna from South Carolina. I have been watching you since True Crime Sidebar. When I heard you were doing the courtroom shows and your own YouTube channel, I was thrilled. And then with the conversations, that's amazing. I love listening to these conversations and learning about these people in addition to their shows. And I've come across a few shows that now I like and listen to because of your conversations. So just want to thank you for everything you're doing and all the legal knowledge in your head. I love it. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you so much, Donna from South Carolina. Old school from True Crime Sidebar. So True Crime Sidebar is the first podcast / YouTube podcast I ever started hosting. It was several years ago on their channel. They have since rebranded. It's now called True Crime News, but that's where I got my first exposure to doing this crazy world was with True Crime Sidebar years and years ago. I still do that sidebar. If you guys don't know, it's on the True Crime News channel. And that's the whole reason why, part of the reason at least, we wanted to start this channel, is that I love doing that so much, and we had such positive feedback. But I said, you know what? We need to start to build something of our own, because I'm just an employee of True Crime News. They do a wonderful job, but I am just a guy that they got to start hosting one of their podcasts, and I wanted to kind of build my own community and do it our way. And so that's why we started out on this adventure. So thank you for all your support, Donna, for going way back. And I love what you said too about the exposure that you've had to other channels through our conversations. That's what we wanted to do. I love this community. I love the people who are a part of it. I love exposing you guys to new faces. I feel like most of the time, we're still the new kids on the block and getting exposed to other people's audiences. But when I get a comment that says, hey, I never heard about this channel until I saw them on your conversation series, I love that. And they love it. And they love that they are starting to get exposure to our community, and everything overlaps, and all boats rise with the tide. And I think that's one of the things we're trying to encourage here on Courtroom Confidential. So thank you, Donna. And thank you, everybody who watches those conversations. All right, let's move on to Tina.
Happy first birthday. What a year it's been. Some amazing podcasts. I love following you guys. Just wanted to say what a great year it's been. I look forward to another great year. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much, Tina. That's very, very sweet of you, and appreciate it. And good to see you as well.
Hi, Josh. I was told about your channel from Gazella, and I've been very happy with your content. I'm a huge true crime buff, and I like how you get right to the facts, and you are able to give a lawyer's perspective, which is really just added benefit. So thank you for all that you do in covering these cases, and look forward to continuing to listen to you.
Thank you so much, Becca. She says she learned about us through Gizla and Grizzly True Crime. I will say, and I see a lot of Grizzlies, and I love when you guys shout it out in the chat and say hello. Kraken Studio, The Real Booty, thank you so much. Gizla and you guys have been so nice to us and one of our biggest supporters. And she is just an absolute treasure of a human being, and she has helped us out, and a bunch of stuff that you guys don't even see, just kind of behind the scenes stuff and encouragement and just being a cheerleader for what we're trying to do. And I'm just so blown away and appreciative of Gizla and the Grizzly community, that you guys always show up and are so nice, and I don't know what else to say, but just how appreciative we are. I don't think I know for sure we would not be where we're at today if it wasn't for her and all of you folks for being so supportive and helpful. So thank you. And I try to shout her out and promote her and help her as much as I possibly can too. And that includes anytime she calls me up and says, can you help me out and be on for whatever reason, I say, absolutely. Just tell me when. So she's a gem, and I thank you guys, and I thank the Grizzlies for always showing up. All right.
Hello, Judge Reader. This is Bertha Sekarowitz, and I wanted to congratulate you on your first anniversary. I really enjoy your different shows. And anyways, I'm following now on Facebook. Have a wonderful evening, and again, congratulations.
Oh, Bertha, you're a sweetheart. Thank you for that. Thank you for calling in. Appreciate it. Anytime I just said it, get a thank you from anybody, I appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time. All right.
Courtroom Confidential turns 1, and well, now I have to sing, I guess. Happy birthday.
Yes.
Well, no, birthday is wrong. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Sorry, Josh. It's embarrassing for me.
Jacqueline, you are a treasure. Thank you so much for that. It takes a lot of guts. I appreciate it. Thank you for leaving that message. All right, what else we got here?
Hi, Joshua and crew. This is Anita from Las Vegas, Nevada. I recently found your channel through your interview with Runkle and just subscribed right away. Really love your take on things and all of your content. So really glad to see the channel grow. Congratulations to you. Just keep doing what you're doing. I do have two questions. The first one is about citing case law. When lawyers need to cite case law for their motions and such, how do you even search that information? Where do you search that information? Just kind of been a burning question of mine. And then my second question is about Collin Griffith case I'm really shocked over. Do you think they will reopen the case for his dad? And if they do, what would they even need? What would they really need to reopen that case? And if they don't, I just hope he can stay out of trouble. Hope he gets the help he needs. Hope he can become a productive member of society. I'm just kind of shocked over that case. But anyway, thanks for taking my message. Thanks. Bye.
Anita from Las Vegas, thank you so much. What a great question. Appreciate all of your support. And I'm glad that you found us through Ian Runkle. We did an interview with Ian, if you guys are big fans of his as well. He was one of our conversations early on. And he's a fantastic guy as well. Really fascinating conversation. All right, two questions. One, how do we find case law? Well, nowadays, there are two big programs. One is called Westlaw and the other is called Lexis. And they always, over the years, go back and forth as to which one is more popular. I think Westlaw is more popular now. And it's a platform where you can get on there and use different keywords and try to find case law and narrow your search down to different jurisdictions and stuff like that. And when I was in law school, we had to learn a lot about that, how to do these searches properly and how to get through that system. And it's just a lot of it's just reading stuff and that doesn't apply, but that case cites a case that might be helpful. And this is a lot of lawyering when you're doing briefs, law and motion work, is finding these case laws. There are some aids out there that kind of point to black letter law, but if you're trying to make a novel argument, you might be searching for it yourself. Nowadays, it works like Google. You just go on there and go, can a person be charged for murder when they're just the getaway driver? I mean, something that broad, and it just spits out a bunch of case law for you. I need cases from California Supreme Court, spits out a bunch of case law for you. It's much more, I don't know, AI intuitive or whatever it is. When I went to law school, we had these things called books. That's how old I am. And we actually had to learn how to, I couldn't even tell you how to do it now, but we had to go through the indexes to find a subject to then you had to do what's something called shepherding, where you would find out, okay, I found a case, but has this case been ever overruled or overruled in part? And you'd have to go back and analyze whether or not the entire case law history of the case you wanted to cite to make sure it was still good law. And it was like, I'm talking like caveman Dewey Decimal Systems type stuff that we had to learn. I'm not so old that we didn't have computers. I'm just saying they made us learn it with books. Then we learned it with Westlaw. But I'll be honest with you, where I'm at in my career right now, I hand it to the law clerk and I say, go find me this stuff and go write this motion for me and go find me some good case law on this issue. And I don't even know if I can remember my Westlaw password. I know that makes me sound like a big jerk, but that's how things work nowadays. And I feel like I've at least earned that much in my career. The other question that Anita had was about Collin Griffith and whether or not they will open up the case against him. I think they absolutely will. I think Oklahoma looks at what happened. I think it was in Tennessee with him where he was found not guilty. And they're like, listen, dude, you don't get away with 2 dead bodies. You don't get to kill both your parents and walk away a free man. Sorry. And I think they're going to reopen the case, and I think they are likely going to file it. And how can they do that? Well, they can do that because they never filed it. And they can say that at the time, we didn't have as much information. We've done some interviews, and they will probably do more interviews and more investigation. But I'll tell you what else they'll try to do, by the way, is use the murder of his mother the same way that they tried to use the murder of his father in the case against his with his mother. And in Oklahoma, they might decide to go ahead and say, by the way, we're going to let the jurors know that it was his mother that he killed. And he was acquitted of that, and they'll know that, but they'll know that that he stabbed and killed his own mother and claimed self-defense. That will be a real trip if that's allowed. Because a different court, different jurisdiction, different judge could decide it's not as prejudicial as the other court and judge decided it was. And that might be something that comes back to haunt him. I just don't see prosecutors. I know how they work, and I know their mind, and I know my own mind well enough to know that this would not be something I could sleep with. And they're probably going to go after him for that. Great question. Thank you, Anita. All right, let's move on.
Hi, Josh. Damaris from England again.
Oh, can you hear that? Oh, you can hear it. Okay, good. Sorry.
I've been watching the ASAP Rocky trial, which I really didn't think I'd be interested in at all. And I didn't know who he was. In fact, I asked my children, had they heard of ASAP Rocky? But the Mr. Tacopina, I think he's called, and Mr. Lewin, I think he's called, for the prosecution, are fascinating. And I think they're both excellent lawyers. I really do. But I am so shocked and surprised at a couple of things. One is the way that they speak to each other and are fighting with each other in such a childish or seemingly childish manner. But during closing arguments, which I always really enjoy, I found that so much of it was picking at each other rather than focusing on the case. And I wonder, is this an anomaly? Is this something that rarely happens? Or is this something that you found in your experience, that in a contentious case that perhaps the prosecution and defense lawyers are really at each other's throats? Love your channel, love your opinions, love your take, love everything about this Courtroom Confidential. Thank you so much. Speak soon.
Damaris, thank you so much. Calling from England. Hello, across the pond. You're in the running for one of our favorite accents here on the channel. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And great question. And in response to this, I found a clip that I wanted to play for you guys because I think this will show kind of how bad things have got in court. And we've talked about this a couple of times. And again, it's so funny, as much as ASAP Rocky is coming up, and I love that she told her children, have you heard of ASAP Rocky? But as much as ASAP Rocky is coming up, it seems to be much more about the attorneys than it is about the case itself. Let's just watch this one clip right here. Hold on, I'm doing this all wrong. There we go.
On the record that his remarks about being unethical is not just about had it with him. This from a lawyer who, and I just say this on it. This from a lawyer who asked in front of a jury for a stipulation that a shooting range was not in California, when either he knew it was in California or had no idea that it was in California. Okay, so he literally asked for a stipulation in front of a jury that he knew was not true or didn't know if it was true. And that's unethical. That's unethical. And this is a guy who, the Ninth Circuit just said lied to a jury in the Branford case.
Your Honor,
so about
one more thing out of him, and we air everything that's happened in this case, which the court's aware of. Stop. He might want to stop.
I'm so correct.
You should be, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take a break. You should be.
Don't tell the courts that told me I was a liar.
Hold on. Hey.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so scared of you.
Stop it.
They're just such children at this point. I mean, it's just the jury. No, first of all, the jury was not there. The judge never would have allowed this to happen with the jury present. I mean, the judge is standing up. They're having that. Tacopina's got his coat off. They're having this conversation, but this has just become so personal between them two. And something you may not have picked up on is what Tacopina referenced there was an opinion where John Lewin got himself into a little bit of hot water for a deposition that he gave in regards to the Robert Durst case. Pardon me. It was civil litigation that took place after the criminal trial. And it was discovered that he had spent a weekend in no kind of inappropriate conduct taking place, but a weekend at Durst's widow's home in the Hamptons. And Lewin had gone there, I think, with a family member or something. No one's claiming that there was anything inappropriate taking place. And in fact, him doing that was deemed to not be inappropriate either. But there was some question about whether or not he had been entirely truthful about what had taken place and when he had gone. Okay. I'm not going to get into all of that. I will say that I don't think John did anything wrong, but there was a lot of media coverage of it at the time. And Tacopina is now throwing that in John's face in front of the judge here in court. And then John responds with, we're going to let everything in that they don't want to have let in. I don't know exactly what he's talking about here. They've become embroiled. Okay. These guys have lost it with each other, and they're both big personalities and big egos. And there's a lot of machismo being thrown around in the room. And there's a lot of people, I think, frustrated with the way that the case is going. I think the prosecution is frustrated, and probably rightfully so, with the way the case is playing out. I think Tacopina's frustrated. I think he's maybe being a little performative for his client and everybody else watching. And there are cameras in the courtroom. You got all of that going together. I think that certainly from the prosecutor's perspective too, it's like, keep your eye on the ball. Don't get caught up in this. That all being said, as much as I can chide them, I have fallen victim to allowing things to get personal. And listen, this is adversarial. You are in battle, and it is hard not to let your emotions get away with you. And it is hard not to, you are just so programmed to win that it's hard to just take a breath sometimes. And I will tell you guys a quick story about a trial I had where I had two defense attorneys, and it had turned ugly, and it started to get personal. And I was very bothered by what I felt like was a bunch of unethical stuff that they had done, things that they had put on the record. I was getting very frustrated. I was getting very upset and bothered, and I felt like the judge wasn't helping me out. Everything, all the things came together, all the perfect storm. I was pissed. And we would take these sidebars, and the way that the courtroom was set up is when we would approach the bench, the defense side of the table was closer to where the judge was, because the judge would step off to the side. So they would always make it to the little sidebar area before me. And you had these two attorneys, and they would huddle in front of the judge with their shoulders together. And I'm standing behind them trying to have a conversation with the judge that's also on the record. And I would get so bothered because they're two attorneys for one client, and they're crowding me out as the prosecutor. I should be standing there talking to the judge as well. And finally, one of these times I came up, and they did and I don't know if they were doing it on purpose to get to me or what. One of the times they did it, and I finally just forced my way in front of him and muscled one of the attorneys out of the way. And he snaps on me like he's going to do something, and I snap on him. And I'm telling you, in that moment, I was so pissed and so in the moment that had it come to blows, it probably would have come to blows. Now, luckily, we both put on our adult hats and took a breath, and the judge told us to calm down. The jurors heard it and saw it. The judge excused everybody and had us all take a moment. We all calmed down, and I'm actually friends with the guy now. But in that moment, I guess what I'm saying is the idea that you can lose yourself in court, I can completely understand. You are fighting. You're not wearing gloves, but you're fighting all day long. And when these things carry on and you're getting frustrated, yes, tensions run high. Correct, Katrina. Emotions run high. And listen, this is not a game for the timid. The people who go into this line of work are probably people with a little bit of a competitive edge to them anyways. I will admit to that myself. And yeah, it got a little dicey for a moment there. Long story short, I ended up winning that trial, but that's for another day. So there is ASAP and what's happening with ASAP. Let's move on to our next question here. Let me make sure I've got this all queued up for you guys. But great question, Damaris.
Hey, this is Gloria in Florida. I just wondered, Natalie Cochran, who was the pharmacist in the trial in Tennessee that was running the Ponzi scheme, she got to walk up to the judge whenever they had a side conference with all the lawyers. Now, in the case of the girl that killed her 17-month-old, that was also Tennessee. But I noticed she didn't go up when all the lawyers went up to the conferences. So I just wonder if it's just up to the defendant, question mark, or maybe it was just the lawyers. All right, thank you.
Gloria from Florida, thank you. That's a great question. And somebody else pointed this out. This is about Natalie Cochran. She is the pharmacist who was recently convicted for murdering her husband. They claim that she injected him with a dose of insulin that caused him to go into some sort of insulin arrest. That. I mean, don't ask me to give you the medicine behind it, but it caused him to lose his life. Interesting case. Interesting arguments behind all of it. I think the jurors got the whole thing right, because one of my biggest points too is I feel like only a pharmacist would know that insulin is going to kill someone. Usually when people are trying to kill somebody, they're looking for things like poison and arsenic, and now eye drops seem to be the new one. I don't allow eye drops in my house, by the way, but now insulin. I feel like that would be somebody who has to understand the medicine behind it, which a pharmacist would. Anyway, putting that all aside, her question was, Natalie Cochran got to approach when they would do these sidebars, and why was she allowed to? And in that same state and jurisdiction, we've seen cases where they don't allow that. The answer to that is this: I have no idea. I do not know. And I looked into this and tried to figure this out. I will tell you this, though. For every jurisdiction, there is rules. For every local courthouse, there are rules. For every courtroom, there are rules. For each judge, everybody kind of decides how they like. Unless there's something on the books that says this cannot happen, a lot of that is just up to the judge's discretion. I have never seen it. Most of the trials I've done, however, involve people who are in custody, and they're never going to allow an in-custody defendant to approach the judge. In cases that I've had where the person is pro per and we need a sidebar, they usually just excuse the jurors and we speak freely in court. They do not have a pro per defendant approach the judge. The idea of the defendant ever approaching the judge is just seen as being something they're not going to allow. So why did they allow it here? I do not know. I do not know if that was a discussion that the attorneys had and got the judge to allow, or if that is just something that the judge allows in that court. The only thing I've seen close to it is I've seen cases where a defendant is using an interpreter, and the interpreter might be allowed to approach, and they're using kind of a remote microphone system where they're interpreting what's being said and the defendant's hearing it in their ear. And then in a way, the defendant is along for the sidebar, but there's not like a law against them not knowing what's discussed at sidebar. And it's transcribed so they can read it later. But the idea that they would ever approach to be a part of the sidebar is usually just never done, just more out of safety concerns than anything. Great question, though. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I appreciate that, Gloria. All right, moving on now to our next one. Tell me if you can hear this, guys. Oh, you can't hear it because I can't get it to work. So hold on. Are you guys hearing that? No. Okay, sorry. I got to redo this. Technology.
Ontario, Canada. Just wanted to say how much. Hi, Josh. It's Joy W. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Just wanted to say how much I enjoy your streams and how you break down the trials for us. And my question for you, since you've been both a defense and prosecutor, which types of trials do you enjoy for each? Which type of client do you like to defend, and which type of trial is your favorite to prosecute? Thanks very much for allowing us to participate in your show. Thanks.
Love it, Joy. Thank you so much for calling in from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I appreciate hearing where everybody is from. What a great question. What kind of cases do I like to handle? As a prosecutor, I really enjoyed, I don't mean to sound like a jerk saying this, I really enjoyed difficult cases. I prided myself in not backing down from what may have been a difficult case. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, we don't know if this person's good for it. I mean, usually you feel very convinced of the guilt of the person when you're a prosecutor. But I'm talking about cases with like a lot of moving parts, several different locations, several, dozens of witnesses need to be called. One of the most complicated cases I had didn't even involve murder. It involved a string of armed robberies committed by this street gang. So it was 3 different defendants, about 12 different victims on 12 different incidents all across the Los Angeles area. So you had, 12 sets of officers, 12 sets of victims, 3 different defense attorneys cross-examining everybody. It just went on and on and on. It was incredibly complicated. And it was a case with dual juries because we had one of the defendants making statements that couldn't be used against the other 2. So we had to, have 2 different juries in there, just a super complicated case. And I thrived on it and loved it and wanted the challenge. So circumstantial cases involving very bad people, that putting all that work into it is well worth it. As a defense attorney, I think I'm looking for something very different. I don't want complicated. I think I want much more straightforward and simple cases that are not awful, not involving really, really horrible circumstances. And quite frankly, cases that are not involving innocent people. I've represented innocent people, and those are the ones that really tear at you and really, really make you give you stomach ulcers because it's like a lot riding on the line. So nowadays, you know, if I get a case and it's just kind of a, you know, I don't mean to sound like I'm stepping away from the challenges. I'll take a challenge and I'll still gear up for it. I mean, I handled a trial last year that was 60 different counts of fraud, and the case lasted over a month and a half, and it was very, very difficult. But I'd much rather handle a DUI or something nowadays, because it's just like I've been through the war. I'm happy to be that old soldier who's just kind of whittling wood to, underneath an apple tree. Julie Frew says, "Did you enjoy being part of the Spector team?" Oh yeah, that was Julie. Julie did some research. I was Alan Jackson's law clerk during the prosecution of Phil Spector way back in the day. And it was, I mean, you know, I was a young law clerk. I was actually an attorney at the time. I had actually just passed the bar, but not been hired and deputized as a DA yet. But I was still working on that case, and it was the biggest case in the office, and it was fascinating, and it was really fun and exhausting. And I got to work closely with some tremendous attorneys. Alan Jackson was one of the prosecutors. One of the others was a man by the name of Pat Dixon, and also Truck Doe was a female prosecutor who's all of them phenomenal. Being able to watch them, I learned so much. But yeah, that was another case that just a lot of moving parts, dozens of witnesses, you know, high stakes, and I loved it. I was, you know, full of energy at the time. P. Lola's mom says, "Have you ever prosecuted or defended a juvenile? Any juvenile charged as an adult?" I have both prosecuted and defended juveniles. Juvenile court is a very, very different world. But never a juvenile as an adult. I have not had one of those cases where they call them fitnessing them up from juvenile to adult court. I've handled those hearings to move them from juvenile to adult court, but never prosecuted or defended a person who was truly a juvenile at the time of the commission of the crime, who's now being tried as an adult. They're difficult cases, but I will tell you that in my experience, those cases that where somebody is tried as an adult is when they have done something incredibly heinous, incredibly awful. And I'm talking like, I remember a buddy of mine handled a case where a young man, 17 years old, had shot and killed his own girlfriend by shooting her in the back of the head, and lit the house on fire, trying to both cover up the evidence and kill her parents. 17 years old. He's a minor at the time. That was a case I think certainly deserved to be fitnessed up and tried as an adult. All right, great question. Thank you so much, Joy. Let's move on.
Hi Josh, it's Sheila from Ireland here. Congratulations on the first birthday of your fabulous channel. Here's to many more. My question to you is, has there ever been a case that you've watched or tried that has made a lasting impression on you that you just can't get out of your head? Also, do you have an opinion on John Lewin in the ASAP Rocky case? His antics in the courtroom have been wild. The amount of objections in closing arguments have been ridiculous. Love Courtroom Confidential, and happy Fun Day Sunday. Bye.
Sheila from Ireland. I love it. Thank you so much. Loved hearing from you. Loved finally hearing from you after seeing your name pop up so many times. Thank you for all your support, and thank you for the question. Let's talk about John Lewin first. We talked about poor John a few times today. Let me say this just to start out. I've known John a very long time. I've known John as long as I've known Alan Jackson. I was a law clerk in what was called the Major Crimes Division, and both John and Alan were prosecutors in that division when I was a law clerk there. And so I've known them for as long as I've been involved with the DA's office. John is an incredibly talented, incredibly skilled, incredibly seasoned prosecutor. He was the guy that usually handled the quote unquote cold cases in the office. He's a guy that's not going to back down. He's a guy that's going to give it his all. He's a guy that's very scrappy and will go toe to toe and never give an inch. In this case, and I hope John would appreciate me saying this to his face, I think he has allowed the defense and the defense attorney to get under his skin to the point that he is starting to get embroiled and get away with himself a little bit. And there are some stuff that, you know, listen, is there a rule against objecting during closing arguments? No, there's not. There's nothing on the books that says you can't do that. In fact, you're allowed to do that. It's just kind of seen as bad form to do so because it is argument. So people are going to say stuff you don't agree with. Now, I have made objections myself during closing arguments if I felt like they were completely misstating the law or adding something. I remember I had a defense attorney one time who started quoting statistics that he had read in the newspaper that morning. Well, that's not the evidence. That's not part of why we're here, and I'm not going to allow that. So rare circumstances. John did object a lot during closing argument, and John felt that that's what he needed to do, and I'm not going to fault him for that. But I also wonder, too, how the jury is perceiving that. And are they perceiving that as he's gotten, his emotions have gotten away with him, or is they perceiving that he's got something to hide? I don't know. We will see how this whole thing plays out. But to the first part of your question, is there a case that has left a lasting impression on me? It's funny. When I thought about this, the first thing that came to my mind is a case I handled early on in my career as a prosecutor when I was still doing misdemeanors. It was a case about three very young men. They were Mexican. The father did not speak English, and the father was accused of physical abuse against them. And it was a misdemeanor, so that we're not talking about injuries that put them into the hospital, but we're talking about, you know, physical abuse. And the mother was terrified, and the kids were terrified, and we brought them into court, and they testified against their own father. And their own father was an incredibly egotistical person, and he took the stand himself and testified about how he's never laid a hand on these kids, and that he's, you know, just disgusted and bothered that they would ever accuse him of something like that. And he's been nothing but loving. And even more so, he was involved with helping people who are victims of abuse. And he had volunteered to help people and counsel them who had suffered from domestic violence. And so he knows what that looks like and has been helping people and would never do something like this. And I got up to cross-examine him, and I started asking him questions like, so you've been educated in domestic violence? Yes, I have. You have experience with domestic violence and how it works? Yes, I do. So you understand that domestic violence is an ongoing cycle where the victim will continue to come back and cover for the abuser, correct? Well, yes, that is sometimes true. And you understand that people are afraid of their own abuser and may not be willing to testify many times in the past against their own abuser. And I started going on and on and on like this. And he starts to get more and more frazzled and rattled by it. And the defense attorney finally stands up and says, can we go approach, Your Honor? We go back into the hallway behind the court to have a discussion. And the defense attorney's like, I don't know where he's going with his questioning, why he's asking him these questions. And the judge says, counsel, I think Mr. Ritter has proven that you had your own client testify as a domestic violence expert, and now he's using him to cross-examine and impeach himself. And I don't think there's anything I could do about it. And that was probably one of the highlights of my entire career. And I got to go back out there and chop this guy up with his own words. And there was a conviction. And I will never forget the mother in tears telling me afterwards, thank you so much. No one would listen to us. And it was one of those moments that really struck me about how what I was doing mattered to people. And that I've, you know, when you go to misdemeanors, everybody kind of tells you, oh, this is just misdemeanors. It doesn't matter. This mattered tremendously to these people and their lives at the time. And I just remember that moment just kind of being like, wow, I really got to think about what I'm doing here, because people's lives are at play here, and what I'm doing matters to these people. It may not matter to the office because it's just a misdemeanor, but it really mattered to these people. So thank you for that question, Sheila. Thank you for calling. That is the first thing that came to my mind. All right, let's do another one here. These are so good, these questions, guys.
Hey Josh, it's Shelly, the crazy person that hollered across a very echoey room at CrimeCon. Still can't believe I did that. Anyhow, my question is, have you ever turned down a client or a case that ended up being a really wild one, causing you to regret not taking it? Thanks, and many congrats on 1 year, and looking forward to many more.
Thank you, Shelly. Shelly, so I was at CrimeCon and I'm standing in line to say hi, or not standing in line. I'm walking up to this huge line of people waiting to stand and meet Matt Murphy, who's been on this show and he's going to be on again soon. But we happen to know each other from years ago as being prosecutors. And I hear somebody yell out, Josh, and I turn around and it's Shelly, and we met and we took a picture and we had a hug. And that was, you know, forever ago. And she's been a big supporter ever since then. So thank you, Shelly, so much for that. Thank you for the question. Have I ever turned down a client that I regretted? No, because usually when it's not right, it's not right. Usually the ones that I have turned down, and I'm not talking about like I'm, you know, turning down everything. I turn down things rarely, but usually when I turn them down, it's because I can just tell this is not a right fit, and I do not regret that. But I've lost a couple. I've lost cases to other attorneys that I not regret but feel bad about. I mean, I was, yeah, I can say this. I was one of the first phone calls with ASAP Rocky. Obviously, I'm not representing him now, but you know, LA is not as big a town as you might think it is when it comes to these types of criminal cases. And there's only so many attorneys around that start to get these phone calls when these big cases come up. And yeah, that's a one that I wouldn't mind be standing in court right now, going toe to toe with John. If you think Tacopina's driving him nuts, I would have had a real fun time driving John nuts. Great question, though. Thank you so much, Shelly. Good to hear from you. All right.
Hi, Joshua. This is Debbie. I'm really enjoying your channel. I found it through Grizzly True Crime. And anyway, you're doing a great job. So thank you so much for all that you do. My question is about the Evelyn Boswell case. And just mainly about when they open up evidence, like the clothes that Evelyn was wearing. Does the smell come through? I was watching that and I was thinking, surely not. But it looked like it might have. So anyway, just wondering about that, because I've never been in a court. I've never been part of a jury or anything like that. So thanks a lot, and have a great day. Bye.
Debbie, thank you again. Hello to all the Grizzlies in the chat. Incredible question. Yes, you will remember this moment if you watch the Megan Boswell, the murder of beautiful Evelyn Boswell case, that the investigators actually brought in the items that were used to wrap this baby girl up, including the tinfoil, pulled that out in court for all the jurors to see. And here's that moment. This is the videotape. That's him actually holding the tinfoil foil that was used to wrap this baby girl's face. And he's got it out of the evidence bags and he's showing it to the jurors. Here's some things about that. I could not applaud the prosecutors more for having done this. They easily could have shown photographs, and I'm sure they did. But they easily could have just kept this to photographs. They easily could have brought that evidence in, still hermetically sealed in some sort of evidence bag, some clear evidence bag, and showed that to the people in court. Nothing is going to have as profound and visceral effect as showing them those actual items, the trash can, the blanket, the tinfoil, as showing them those items in court. And in this case, to answer your Debbie, yes, there was a smell, and it was overwhelming from what we heard and was reported, to the point that the investigator was having difficulty breathing, to the point that one of the jurors complained of feeling sick. Wow. I've never seen that. I've seen evidence pulled out in court. I've seen the actual evidence, knives, guns, things like that displayed in court. Bloody items, including, but never anything that still had the odor of decomposition from a body. Talk about something those jurors will live with for the rest of their lives. I thought it was profound, and I applaud the prosecutors for having done it. All right. So let's move on. We've just got a couple of more here, guys. Farm Girl, you're fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. It's been, oh, you guys didn't hear it? Oh, sorry. That's unfortunate.
Hey Josh, it's Farm Girl. Just want to congratulate you on 1 year of Courtroom Confidential and wish you many more to come. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You guys hear that? Okay. Thank you so much, Farm Girl. I appreciate you for leaving that. It's so good to hear from you after seeing your name for so long and being one of our biggest supporters. All right. Just give me 1 second. I'm waiting to hear from the producers on where we go from here. Okay. It is time to announce our big winner. What the one thing we do have missing from this is we need a drum roll. So the giveaway was for our 1 year anniversary. You leave us a message, which so many of you did. So all of you were entered to win. You follow us on Facebook, which you all did. So we're all appreciative of that, because we've been able to now stream it out on Facebook. And you are entered to win a sweatshirt, a mug, and this tote bag, which we are not selling, but we're going to give it to you for this giveaway. We had a cutoff of midnight last night. These were all the messages that we received as of that time. You are all fantastic. And drum roll, please. The winner is Sonia. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sonia. You are a big supporter of ours. We always appreciate seeing you. We always appreciate your questions. And so please, Sonia, I think you already have the email, but email media@joshuaritter.com and give us your address. So you're going to have to let us know where you live so that we can send this all to you. And I hope that you enjoy the sweatshirt and the mug and the tote bag and wear them all proudly, because we are very proud to have them. And we are very proud to have you as one of our supporters. And we're so glad that you were able to win. Have no fear, guys. More of these will be coming soon. It's just the beginning. I told Tiffany the other day, I'm like, I want to start doing more of these giveaways. And she said, we're going to we're gonna end up losing money. And I said, I don't care. The giveaways are fun and everybody loves being a part of it. So thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you, Pantuful. I keep on pronouncing that wrong, I think, but thank you so much for coming from Recovery Addict. Thank you for being here. Did I get to thank everybody who left super chats and everything? Let's do that now, huh? Krista for the gift of a membership. You're fantastic. K9 Catherine for the happy birthday. Appreciate you for being a member. Deborah for being for becoming a member. Appreciate you, having you. Allison Powers for joining up. Suzanne has been a member, really enjoying the call-ins. Big hugs to friends in the chat, Mods and Josh, for this fantastic channel. I love this call-in. I love this call-in thing. I think it's a fun thing to do. The more you guys call in, we might even start doing these more often too. Thank you, Queen Olive, for being a member. Thank you, Mama She 13. You're not too late. Don't worry, we didn't do it. Everything got saved for you. Dr. Bullbutter, happy birthday. Thank you so much for being a member. Afton, oh, thank you so much for gifting the memberships. You're fantastic. Jody Arrington for gifting some memberships. You're fantastic as well. You guys, this has been really fun. This turned out to be a lot more fun and a better experience than I even had imagined. And I had some pretty high expectations for this show. So here's our quick going away comments. One, we moved our weekly roundups to Saturdays. So now, if you guys haven't noticed, we're going to start releasing everything instead of on Friday. It's going to be on Saturday. I think you guys said you appreciate that. Mama She, thank you so much. And I'm glad that you're here as well. So check out the Saturday episode and all Saturdays moving forward. We talked about Megan Boswell. We talked about ASAP Rocky. We talked about Karen Reed, a lot of the stuff that you guys are interested. Tomorrow, stay tuned for our newest episode in our conversation series. We sat down with Mike King from Profiling Evil. Another fascinating conversation, another fascinating dude, another incredible background that he has. That will premiere tomorrow, Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. But if you know, you know, 30 minutes early, hop in. We do our countdown show where we cover some breaking news topic. It's live. We all get to chat, and then we zoom you over, transport you, beam you up to the live premiere. And then hopefully Mike will be there himself and we can chat with him while we watch the episode. As always, let us know who you guys want to hear from next. We love hearing your suggestions, and we reach out to nearly everybody that you guys are suggesting. If we're able to get a hold of them, we reach out to them and ask them if they would like to sit down for an interview. Last thing, if you loved hearing these comments and you yourself would like to start sharing some comments and questions with us, well, then here's how you do it. You just go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and you click on this button over here on the right that says send a voice message. And this is where you can record a message for us. It's 1.5 minutes long is the only thing I will tell you that it doesn't warn you. But I would love if you do leave us a message, please let me know your name and where you're from too, because it's so exciting to hear all the places that people are from. Do you want to become a member? Of course you do. Click on become a member, and then you can hear, if you click on this tab, it will shoot you over to where you can sign up and hear about all of the advantages of being a member of Courtroom Confidential. And we hope that you do, because it's super helpful for us. And it's a fun thing that we try to add continuing content to every single month. And then if you want to have some of this cool merch, all the cool kids are wearing it, including this guy. Look at the guy. See, he's got sleeve tattoos. Don't you want to be cool like this sleeve tattoo guy and have a shirt like that? You go to click on the shop button and you can see all the merch for Courtroom Confidential. All right, guys. Wow. This was a fun show. It's been 1 year. Thank you for spending a Sunday with me. Thank you for spending the last year with me. We are completely touched. Like I said, from Kaylin, from Tiffany, we put a lot of work into this, and the only reason why we exhaust ourselves with a smile on our face is because of all of you folks for giving your support and your encouragement and your feedback. And this growing community just continues to shock and amaze us every single day. And this is just the beginning. I think year number 1, we're going to look back on years from now and go, that was cute, but look at all the stuff that we're doing now. We are so thankful, and we're thankful again for you being here with us on a Sunday. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And here's to looking forward to another fantastic year. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.